Okay, today we are talking about the Endgame Trackball. A while back I found this trackball and immediately it caught my attention. I've always wanted to build a custom trackball and I thought this could be the right foundation for my project. The alternative would be the Adept Trackball by Bloopy, but it's way too similar to a Kensington trackball that I have and I hate. So yeah, I went for the Endgame. Looking for a bit more information, it turned out that eFog Tech is a guy from Kharkiv, Ukraine. I reached out and I got to know Artem, the designer of the trackball. Of course, I asked about the situation in Ukraine and I could tell that he was glad for the attention, but he would rather talk about anything but the war. So I moved on and asked about the endgame, and it turned out to be a 2-year passion project that wasn't even meant to be a commercial product. He just posted about it, people seemed interested, and so he started selling the components to improve the firmware and add more options. I'm no trackball expert, so I picked all the options with the little star that I guess are recommended and ordered the endgame. Now, even if you have a little soldering experience, I would highly recommend to add the extra and have Artem assemble the trackball for you. It's relatively simple, but there are no spares in the bundle, so you are gonna regret any mistake. Yeah, ask me how I know. On the GitHub repository there's a nice assembly guide that is mostly okay, but doesn't really cover everything. First thing to do is to break the little daughter boards from the main PCB. And before you blame me for being careless, I want to point out this paragraph from the guide. It would be really hard to break it in the wrong place, so don't worry. Well, I actually managed to obliterate some of the teeniest traces right on the border. So this is me that without the right tools or proper skills is trying to fix the damage. It took me a good 40 minutes and it was painful. But anyway, at the end I was able to repair the traces and seal everything with some resin. I'm not up for a great start. Next is soldering the sensor. There are 2 of them because the trackball supports twist to scroll. More about that later. Overall they are very easy to solder, but the switches are a little more challenging. They are not difficult to do per se, but you have to pay attention to the tiny components around the pads. And also you need to act very quickly because the plastic casing is rather delicate and it melts if you linger with a soldering iron. I'm sure there's a better strategy to solder the switches, so yeah, you are free to solder shame in the comments. Finally, the vibration motor. Yeah, we've got one of those. It wouldn't be an endgame otherwise. And as far as I can tell, it's used only as a feedback when cycling through the sensitivity options. But I guess could be customized to do other stuff. The soldering part is done. Next is assembly. Starting with positioning the threaded inserts in the provided 3D printed chassis. It's very nicely printed, but the sparkly PLA is a bit brittle and I think I would like to redo it in ABS or PTG. Then there's a little bit of gluing with the most stringy glue on the planet. The lens needs to be placed on top of the sensor, of course, and there's quite a few magnets. These are for the switch keycaps. The result is very nice, and it's easy to swap the keycap if you want to change it, but I would much prefer a more stable way to hold them. In day-to-day use, I had the keycap move a little if you don't press the button straight from above. So yeah, not the best option in my opinion. Next, the flat cables and the rotary encoders. Very straightforward, nothing special to report. Just check carefully how to route the cables before screwing down the encoders. I had to undo the screws a couple of times until I finally figured out how they should go. At this point I did a quick test fit to check if everything worked and added the Bosch ball bearings. There's no mention to the vibration motor in the assembly guide, so I glued it in the only place that made sense, connected the battery, and all left to do is to close the case. The two halves fit incredibly well together, and the screws line up with the threaded inserts perfectly. And it's done. Super happy with the result. When you connect it for the first time, it mounts as an external drive. All you have to do is to download the latest firmware and drop it into the mounted drive. It will flash automatically, and in a few seconds it's ready to go. So here it is, the Endgame Trackball. Really nice, with the Bosch ball bearings, a little noisy. The case is very nicely 3D printed. You can barely see the layer lines on the sides, a little bit on the keycaps. These are magnetics, as I said, and they wiggle a little, not a big problem, only maybe with the thumb one. The Bosch ball bearings are really smooth. The tracking is incredibly responsive even in Bluetooth. The problem maybe is that, well, it's too responsive. It's very difficult to keep the cursor steady, and lowering the sensitivity makes it slower but not necessarily more stable. It took me a while to find the perfect balance, but at the end I was able to find a good compromise between speed and precision. The complaint about these ball bearings is mostly the noise. It's not loud, but it has a rather unpleasant scratchy sound. And honestly, it's not too bad and you get used to it, but I can see how it could be bothering someone. Another issue I have, as I already mentioned, is the magnets on the keycaps. It happens that the button slides a little if you don't hit it exactly from above. Yeah, especially the thumb one. It's not too bad, but I think this could be very easily fixed by changing the shape of the buttons, and I will probably work on that soon. The switches themselves are pretty good, very clicky, maybe a little too stiff. If I had to redo it, I would probably get a softer alternative. I don't use the rotary encoders, so I'm probably going to remove them altogether. But I find the right one especially to be almost impossible to reach when you are operating the trackball normally. Maybe it should have been placed, I don't know, on the side, on the top right corner, I don't know. A cool feature instead is the twist to scroll. If you rotate the ball like this, it starts scrolling instead of moving the cursor. The idea is great, but you really need to fine-tune the sensitivity, otherwise you get a lot of false positive and you end up scrolling by mistake. I still need to fine-tune this. I think it can be done, but at the moment I had to lower the sensitivity a little too much and the scrolling is a bit slow. Another issue I have is that it's very difficult to scroll without moving the cursor, even a little. While it's generally fine when reading documents or browsing the internet, when doing professional work it's annoying. Anyway, you can still scroll by holding a button and moving the ball up and down, which is much more responsive and fast and comfortable. Battery life is early to say, but it seems to lose between 3 and 5% per day, so it should last at least 3 weeks. But of course you can still use the wire. Okay, let's talk about the competition. As I said, I'm not a trackball expert, but I have tried a few during the years. When you are a noob, the go-to trackball is a Kensington, and this is probably the worst trackball I've ever had. It just doesn't feel good in my hand, even with a wrist rest, and the scroll gear is a good idea but terribly executed, and it was scratchy. I had to put some grease inside and still doesn't work very well. The one that I use the most lately is the Elecom Deft. It's mostly for light use, but I like the ergonomics. There are a lot of buttons and they are all very easy to access. I find that I can use this for both casual browsing and also professional work. This is on shape and I can very easily navigate through all the options. Here I have a very long list of tabs that I can scroll easily with a side wheel, while it's very difficult to scroll this with Endgame. So basically, as far as I can tell, this is the better version of the Kensington. It's compact, very responsive, but I think that it could be significantly improved. What I want to try is to place a second thumb button on the side here, so I can reach 2 buttons with the thumb without ever touching the ball. Another good spot for another button could be on the other side, on the top right, so you can reach it with a ring finger or maybe the pinky. Also, maybe I want to try to put the trackball on a slight angle, like so. I don't know if it might help, we'll see. This is the 52mm ball, and this is 55. It stands a little higher, so the trackball becomes a little less ergonomic maybe, but the tracking is so much better. It's probably just because the ball is heavier, it's much more precise to maneuver. So yeah, in the coming weeks I'll try to make a few modifications to the endgame, mostly the position of the switches and a little bit the shape of the case. Yeah, I'll let you know if something good comes out of it. Otherwise, it's a very solid option. If the price doesn't scare you, I can certainly recommend it. I think it's pretty much it for today, and have a good one. Ciao.